What advice would you give someone looking to move into data engineering? I've seen over years, you've seen data scientists move into data engineering. Obviously, the whole subject in general, data's gone wild now, isn't it? Like everyone wants to work in the industry, so it'd be good. Obviously, and it's hard looking at say like graduates. It is a challenging area for them to get into business because a lot of companies do want the experience already. So it'd be good to get your advice to people looking to get into the market.
Yeah, it is a hard one. It's difficult if you're a software engineer and you want to go work at a company as a software engineer. You can build an app or a website or whatever it may be that like some automation,
Mhm.
and maybe you host it on AWS and it costs you $15, maybe up to 50, but not that much. If you want data engineering experience, you can run a toy example with a gigabyte data set and it'll cost 5, 10, $20 maybe. But that's not going to teach you as much about, and you're not going to run into a lot of the issues you run into running a large data program or running on big data.
Mhm.
It can be hard to get those toy examples going and get that same experience until you start, say, loading up with a terabyte data set, at which point you're talking like that could cost you $1,000 to operate a Redshift cluster or run a Spark cluster, whatever it may be, which as a student, you're not going to want to go spend that amount of money, I
Yeah.
imagine. There are student credits and different programs out there to help with that, but it's definitely, there's a barrier. And then the other thing I'll say is if you're running a data pipeline, it takes an hour, like that is a time investment. And again,
Yeah.
students or people learning this might not have the time or energy or ability to invest that amount of time. And that's part of what makes data engineering a unique area for testing as well. Yeah, I'd say do as much as you can with what you have. So figuring out like, can you force a certain, even with a gigabyte data set, can you create a small cluster and make it so that the data set has data skew so you run into some memory overload
Mhm.
issues and learn how to deal with that. It's going to be a little bit different, obviously, because you know what the issue is ahead of time. But just finding ways to play around with a lot of these tools. I don't think, I mentioned that it is different, but I don't think you need a terabyte data set. It's okay to play around with a gigabyte and just get familiar with the APIs, understand what everything is. I think reading a lot of these white papers for the Hadoop HDFS white paper when I started was really helpful to understand, okay, this is what's going on with distributed computing. This is why it's harder. There's a
Mm.
lot of things going on under the hood that are often abstracted away that you luckily don't need to know about. But it's good to maybe even try creating your own distributed system, which every time I think, oh, I should go, recreate this or that, I learn don't do that. It's way too hard. But I think playing around with that, running into those issues and seeing why some of these frameworks are so great can be really helpful, or just understanding the trade-offs and what's going on is
Mm.
really helpful. So yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
play around.
Yeah, no, I think obviously like we've done hiring in the software field, and like, for juniors, you can just they can go on GitHub and create something, and that's illustrating their skills. But yeah, like that, the data is obviously completely different beast.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you want to talk about ML, it's, you need a GPU and that's going to be really expensive. There's definitely toy examples you can go with that are not going to cost as much.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, great.